All right, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Average Joe Show. I am your host, Joe Carrion, and I am here with Wyalusing Head Coach Rich Rogers. I really had my mindset I wanted to interview Rich when I first started this show, just because he's got an incredible story to tell. But I'm not going to talk because I think we're here to listen to Rich. Rich, I appreciate you being here so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Rich has the Wyalusing Rams at 2-1, correct?
On the 3-1.
3-1 on the season. Yep. Sorry about that.
Yep.
They are. Wyalusing's been kind of a turnstile at the head coach position the last several years until Rich got here. He's in his second year. He's really turned that program around. I think really given them an identity. And Rich, I just kind of want to hear your story about how did you even find that job? You were down in Florida, correct? Working?
Right. Yeah. My wife and I were down in Florida 2 winters ago, basically, looking for paint work down there. Struggled to find enough winter work up here. So we tried it. I had never been, great experience. We got a camper. We went down. We worked for the winter. And just while I was down there, happened to be looking through my phone, PA football coaching jobs, just found myself one day. It had been literally 17 years since I last coached at Troy. And just as I was thumbing through, I saw a Wyalusing Football Head Coach position advertised. And immediately, like a little spark just started burning in my gut. And I thought, wow, that's neat. Like I honestly had thought that chapter of my life was over. After I was done at Troy in 2006, I went to work for the Daily Review, was a stringer, covering all the football games, wrote for 17 years for the Daily Review. Enjoyed my time doing that, being able to be on the sideline every Friday night. But honestly, had thought I loved coaching. I would have done it for an entire career if I could have. It wasn't my choice to leave. So when I lost that job, it was devastating. But I honestly thought at this point, 17 years later, like that chapter is over. I moved on, and really, like as soon as I felt that spark, I thought, wow, I wonder if this is possible, So my wife got home from work. I mentioned it to her. What do you think? And she's like, well, let's pray about it. So we did. And I honestly felt like I had the green light to go ahead and apply. Went ahead and applied, actually interviewed via computer from Florida to Wyalusing. Didn't really think I had a shot, and when I got the call a couple of weeks later, very surprised to find out that they offered me the position.
Wow, that's incredible. So you're offered the position. You walk in to your first team meeting, and I've heard this story a few times that you kind of just felt compelled that there was a clear message you had to send to those kids in that first team meeting. Right. And what was it?
Right. Well, Wyalusing had asked, would you be willing to come up and meet the team? So we got plane tickets, flew up. It was early March, and they asked me to come to the auditorium 8 a.m., brought all the kids that were interested in football to the auditorium, 46 kids file in, have a seat. Mostly it was, who's this guy? They're flying in from Florida. Curiosity more than anything else because we don't have anywhere near those numbers. But the principal's there, the superintendent is there, the athletic director is there. It's a big introduction, And I knew, like, as I was prepping for that meeting, I was praying about it. God, what do I say to him? First impressions are so important. And I knew the answer was tell him you love him. And at first I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to start out with that, right. Very nervous to meet your first group of teenage guys, football players, and tell them that. But I knew that was the answer. I knew that was the correct thing, the way to start it out. So I got this big intro from the AD. Every eye's on me. I stand up, I pause for effect, and I said, I love you guys. And it was kind of like they're just kind of looking out of the side of their eye at each other like, all right, who's this guy, But I said, let me explain. Give me a second. And I said, I gave him the story of how I found the job. So I said, before I knew any one of you, I chose you. Okay. And I started to see some heads nod like, okay, all right. I understand that. So
they were buying in at that
They
moment.
were, yep. And we just went from there. So before I left that day, I said, give me a second to get to the back of the auditorium. I want to shake every one of your hands. I want to get every one of your names before we move any farther forward. And I did that. And really, as the superintendent principal gave me a tour of the building, the bell rang, classes changed, and I hear a couple kids already, hey coach, thanks for coming up, So right away they were were hooked, you know?
Yeah.
So,
When you get in there, you're given the job. It seems like the kids that from that day, they were sold on you. When you get in the door and you kind of get the keys to the ship, what do you feel you had to? Did you have to change anything? Did you have to change the philosophy on the kids? Did you have to change football philosophy for what they were taught the last several years? What did you kind of face when you first took over?
I think the biggest challenge was to get them to believe we're not losers. Okay. 2010 to 2023, nothing but losing seasons at Wyalusing. And I tried to tell them, first of all, started with history of you guys got to know where you came from. Okay. I played in the early 80s. Wyalusing was the team to beat. Okay. Ray Rafin, an amazing career, 35 plus years as a head coach there. A lot of success in Wyalusing. And like I said, during my time as playing my junior, senior year, Wyalusing didn't lose a game, 23 games straight winning streak. So they were the team to beat. And I said, you guys need to know this. You need to understand where you come from, a little bit of your history. I found maybe 15, 20 different team photos and different pictures of players in the locker room, just kind of on a shelf collecting dust. I cleaned them all off. We set them out on, we have a huge whiteboard in the locker room. Every day as they come in to dress, they're looking at their history. They're seeing it right in front of them, okay? And then each week, as we went through the season, I would write last year's score, this year's score. And they could see it right there as soon as they walked in the locker room. And I said over and over and over, you're not last year's team. You're not the losers that you think in your mind that you are. There were still some hurdles to overcome, and it was a process. But they started to believe, hey, you know, coach is trying to tell us something here. Maybe we're not, you know. And the goal was to have that winning season, you know, and to be able by the end of the year to be playing for that. You know, we're going against Towanda. We're 5-4. If we lose the bronze helmet game, it's just another non-winning season. We'll end up 5-5. That game was huge, and to be able to come out on top that night, that was just such a big night for the whole program, for the kids. Like just an amazing, amazing experience.
Yeah, you guys were. I felt one of the talk of the league last year because it's like you said, Wyalusing really had been perennial losers 3-4 years as long as I've been in news media. And last year, people were talking about you guys.
Yeah.
I remember the game against Troy. I know you guys were down big in the first half, but you guys played hard through the entire game.
Yeah.
And I remember there were quite a few drives near the end of the game where you guys were taking it to them. You know, you out physicaled them a little bit. And they're starters.
Even Coach Smith, which that's a big compliment that he said. You know, he said we actually were nervous going into that game, seeing which the offense that you guys played, where it's just basically two tight ends, full house backfield. Here we come. You know.
Yeah.
And really, that was the offense that fit this team. I wanted to do some different things. But I also told them, we're going to do what you're good at. We're going to find what you're good at, and that's what we're going to do. Because, that's the first question you get asked as a new coach. What's the playbook? What's the playbook, you know? And I said, whatever you're good at, you show me, and that's what we'll do. And that was what they were good at. I had hard-nosed running backs. I had a decent line. And I said, we couldn't really throw the ball. So it was, this is who we are. This is what we're going to do. We're going to be who we are. And they were true to themselves. And, all the way through, we got people's respect because we just stuck with what worked for us. And it's hard lining up against a team and preparing 1 week for here they come 70 times up the middle. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's hard to prepare for. And to have the freedom to go for it every fourth down, to onside kick whenever you feel like it. I mean, we had nothing to lose. And to be able to play a season with that kind of mentality, that was huge. That really, the kids bought into that right away, and it was just a lot of fun. It really was.
Back to the Troy game, something else happened at that game. You probably know what I'm talking about. Troy player got hurt, and two or three of your guys, and this was a picture in the newspaper. I saw this all over social media. They're going back and helping him walk off the field.
Yeah.
I mean, what does that mean? Speak to the testament of character that those kids have.
It's a neat story because I tell people I pray for wisdom all the time. I don't have the answers. I'm not the smartest coach out there. I don't have all the answers, X's and O's, but I pray for wisdom every day. God, give me wisdom. And his word says that if you ask for wisdom and you seek it diligently, you'll get it, but you'll also get his favor. Okay? So to start that game, Troy got up 4 scores pretty quick. I had one loose cannon, we'll say, on the team, okay? He had already lost his starting positions, offense, defense, whatever. Was still on kick return. For whatever reason, chose to pick out the Troy kicker, pancaked him, started giving them business. Flags came in, basically unsportsmanlike. He was ejected from the contest. He received the maximum PIAA 2-game suspension. I'm mortified. Okay, I live in Troy. I've lived in Troy my whole life. I coached at Troy. I played at Troy, and this is my first time back wearing green and gold. Okay, so I'm already nervous to begin with, and first half this happens, and I'm just like, because this is so opposite of what I teach.
Yeah.
I mean, first day when I met the kids, one of the first practices, I took them in the gym, and if you've ever been in a Wyalusing gym, it is nothing but green and gold banners and floors and walls.
It's beautiful.
And, I mean, it's amazing. And I point to the one blue banner in the corner, and I say, it'd be nice to hang another one of these gold and green, but what I really want is one of those blue banners, and it's the PIAA sportsmanship. So we preach sportsmanship, good sportsmanship, and doing the right thing and playing the right way, and that's the way I was taught. So I try to pass it on to the kids. So right away, here we are, my first time back to Troy, and this happens, right? I'm just mortified. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, we're going to have to move. You know, I can't live in this town anymore. Who's this Rogers guy think he is coming in?
You're a
here?
Troy guy.
Yeah. I mean, so the game ends, and we're going through the handshake line. And normally you say, hey, good game, good luck, whatever. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm apologizing to every player as we go through. I get to the Troy coaches. I'm like, I'm so sorry, you guys. That is not what we're about. I apologize. They were good. Hey, don't worry about it. But the end of that game, people who have seen that on Facebook, basically one of the Troy running backs was injured during the game. The tradition for Troy is as soon as the game's over, the players go to the grandstand, the band plays the alma mater, they take their helmets off. And so mom of the injured player is up in the stands, and she's recording, the players singing the alma mater. And then she pans over to see her son hobbling off the field by himself. Okay. As she's videotaping, literally 2 seconds later, a couple of my players are jogging off the field. First one stops, turns around, takes his helmet off, shakes his hand, and the next two immediately take the injured player's arms, throw him over their shoulders, and start helping him off the field. And it couldn't have been a 6 or 8 second clip. That's all it was. Yeah. She posted it the next day. The last I checked, there were over 19,000 views of that.
It went locally viral, when that happened. So that's incredible.
Yeah. And to me, again, when you pray for wisdom and you have God's favor, that's the kind of, I'm mortified thinking, I'm going to have to move. And by Monday, there was a care package at Wyalusing High School office for the entire football team, from the cheerleaders, beef jerky and chips and cookies and a big thank you card. And we were invited to the Wyalusing school board, invited myself and the 3 players that helped out to attend a school board meeting where certificates were given out. We were praised for, our good sportsmanship. And I thought, that's how God works, is all you can picture is I got to move because I'm so embarrassed.
Yeah.
And in the end, you're receiving care packages and invitations to the board meeting to congratulate you for your sportsmanship.
Yeah,
so
that's incredible. I mean, the thing that high school sports goes beyond, those games that you play, right, and then you graduate and, you're teaching kids football. And I know you want to win. The goal is to go to districts and win district titles and state championships, but does that make you feel good as a coach, seeing that those guys are men? For sure.
It's it is all about the influence that you have. You're training these guys up to be men. And because of your influence, if you take it serious enough and you think, wow, it's more than just wins and losses in football. And yes, I enjoy all that. Everybody who does it does enjoy it. But I'm so much more interested in who they are and who they're becoming, and knowing that you got a staff of coaches that love you and care about you, and the family atmosphere that we've developed there.
Yeah.
It's just awesome.
That's awesome. I want to talk to you about your kicking situation. That's a unique story as well. Can you tell me a little bit about that? You had to go to the soccer team, right, to recruit your kicker?
Right. One of the first practices, you go offense, you go defense. Okay, now let's figure out who's going to do our punting, who's going to do our kicking. So we let all 31 guys try out. I had my son Selden, who's my assistant coach. He was working with kickers, finding who that was. I was working with punters. So we get to the end of practice, everybody's tried out, and I go to Selden, okay, who we got? Who's our kicker? He says, nobody. I said, come on, you're joking around. You're just kidding. No, he said, literally, not one out of these 31 guys can kick a football. And I'm like, well, that's a problem. So I observed, had them all try out again. And I'm like, yeah, he's right. So I actually went to the referees. I went to PIAA. I said, is there a way around kicking? I know the game is football, but can we start with a punt? Can we just give the other team the ball on the 35? I mean, I was that desperate to like, we can't kick a football,
Wow.
And I was told, no, that you can't take that out of the game. It's part of it. There's
Yep.
no way around
Yep.
it. Because I even thought, what if we were to kick it straight out of bounds? Well, they'll just throw a flag and they can just keep moving you back 5 yards at a time. So there's no way around it. You got to be able to kick. So anyway, I got to know the girls soccer coach pretty quick. And I approached him and asked, hey, is there anybody on the team that might be able to help us? And he said, well, my daughter's our best foot. She's also my team captain. She's one of my better players. So he said, number one, I can't have her getting hurt in football in her senior soccer season. Number two, she's my daughter. I can't have her getting hurt in football. So I said, I just felt like I'm not supposed to let up on this guy. Like, this is my answer. This is my solution. So I kept after him and I just kept bugging him. And I just said, listen, I know this is not your problem. This is my problem. But if there's any way you consider it. We had one of the players on the team who was good friends with his daughter. Went over one night to visit, bought the whole family ice cream. I'm sending pictures of the brand new number 13 jersey we just got, which is their soccer number.
Some heavy recruiting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Wouldn't she look great in this new jersey? I mean, we were like, we weren't going to give up. We were persistent. And finally, Coach Haley said, all right, you can have her for 5 minutes. We'll let her try out. So she came to her first practice. Everybody's working drills. Olivia comes down. We hold the ball for her. She comes, she makes contact for the first time, and the sound of her foot hitting the ball, practice just stopped. Whatever everybody was doing, they just stopped, turned, and looked. And we were like, yeah, this will work, And we had her back up to 30, 35 yards day one, and she was hitting them. So I'm like, okay, this is the answer. So glad that she said yes and joined us for the year.
There was a game, though, that wasn't it the bronze helmet game?
Yeah.
She had a pretty big game for you guys, right?
Two games. So she joined us by week 2. She was there for Sayre, and then the following week was Athens. And the season before, 51-7 Athens. Okay, and we're going over there, and my kids aren't fully believing yet. Okay, they're still struggling with coaches telling us we're good, but we don't really believe it yet. And this game was just back and forth, like. It was almost like we were doing everything we possibly could to lose because that's who we are. We're Wyalusing and we lose. And it was just a struggle the entire game. So Athens went up 12-0 early, missed both their extra points. And then we had a lightning delay. So that was a long 1.5-hour delay. We come back out, and fortunately we have a kick return that one of our players takes to the house. So, okay, we're back in it. Now it's 12. And Olivia hits her extra point, so it's 12-7. And then in the fourth quarter, we score again. Olivia goes out, kicks the extra point, and that's the difference in the game, 14-12. So her foot was the difference. So after that game, everybody, like, if they could have carried her off the field, like, that was the attitude. And you should see the smile on her face, like, just ear to ear, that, her 2 kicks had made the difference in that game of a team, like I said, 51-7 a year before. So that was the beginning of them believing.
Yep.
And then by the time we got to the final game, the bronze helmet versus Tawanda, she made her first extra point, which gave us the opportunity then late in the game when we scored to be able to go for 2 and win that game. So there's 2 games by her foot. That's the difference between 6-4 and 4-6.
Yeah, it's incredible.
The other part of that too was homecoming. She texted me the week of homecoming and she said, Coach, is it okay if I don't kick the first half because I'm on court? And I said, no, that's great. Enjoy your time, whatever. So the team stayed out. We didn't go in the locker room for our normal talk. They all, can we watch Olivia? Yeah, that's fine. Yep. So we all hung out at the track and watched. Well, wouldn't you know, she gets homecoming queen.
Wow.
So they crown her. Here she is, homecoming queen. Everybody taking pictures and say, all right, get that thing off. Get your helmet back on. We got a game to play.
Yep.
Off she goes, gets her helmet on, comes out, kicks an extra point. In the second half, we beat Wellsboro. So I said, how many girls have that story?
Yeah, that's incredible. So. Well, I mean, it's crazy to see, the whole progression of, your first season, because, without Haley, was that her name?
Yeah,
Haley? Yep, Haley. joining your team and just the character building. It's crazy to see the progression of how you guys you made them a winner, and it's incredible to see, Rich. I got to ask you though, you are who you are. What coaches did you watch growing up or encounter when you were coaching at Troy that have made you the coach and the man that you are?
Yeah, I am more than happy to give all the credit to Mark Strzelecki. I've said this to anybody who will listen. I was so blessed. My family moved up from New Jersey in 1974. My parents grew up in Central Jersey. That was home to them. That's all they ever knew. They were tired of the taxes at the time, and they started praying and asking God. And His direction was Northeast PA and eventually Troy, PA. So they were literally following God, following answers to prayer that landed us in Troy, PA. When I got to 9th, 10th grade, Mark Strzelecki was in his second year at the time. So the timing was like, I'm so thankful that I had the opportunity to learn the game under him. An amazing man who he only coached in Troy from the decade of the 80s, basically. My senior year was the 83, 84 season. So I was right in the middle of his career. It's hard to describe who he was other than as a player, when you made the team, you knew you were his, okay? And it wasn't hugs and I love yous and all that, but you knew you were his. And all of us to a man, it didn't matter if you were the starting quarterback or you were third string defensive back, you were important to him. And he let you know that. And everybody to a man would have run through a wall for this guy. He grew up in the Philly area. He went to Bucknell and played football there before he came to Troy. He got a history teaching job. That's how it started, his path there. But he was someone who sportsmanship was very important to him. I mean, he wanted you to play hard. He wanted you to play physical. He wanted you to play tough. But his saying was always knock them on their butt and then reach out a hand and help them up. And I am passing on the exact same thing to my kids. They're all hearing the same thing. The first day I met him, part of that introductory talk was I had the article I had written about him when he passed. And I told the kids, this is who I learned football from. This is what I'm going to teach you, what he taught me. So, yeah, all the credit to him.
Wow. Will you go on a limb and say that Strez is one of the most upstanding human beings you ever met?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. I mean, right now we're about to celebrate. I don't know if you know about this, but Old Shoe and Bronze Helmet weekend, the last regular season weekend, we are dedicating a statue to him in Troy. Basically, after he passed 2 years ago, there was a group of about 6 or 7 of us who said we need to do something to honor him. We came together. We tossed around some ideas. One was let's have a bench made from Troy marble and granite. Let's have that placed down at the locker room in Troy. So we've done that. And then somebody threw out the idea of a statue. And right away I said, boy, Strez would have hated that. He was so humble that he would have hated that. But this isn't for him. This is for us. And we reached out to over 100 former players who played during that 9 years when he coached and asked, would you be interested in donating? We ended up raising almost $30,000.
Incredible. We
had pictures of him that we ended up picking one pose where he's kneeling with the playbook in his hand, staring out at the field. We found a sculptor overseas who agreed to do it for us. Did an amazing job. It's a really good likeness. It was completed probably a couple months ago and then had to be shipped to California and then trucked all the way here. And so it is now on a base. He's looking out over the practice field in Troy.
Wow.
And on October 26th, 11 a.m., we're having anybody who wants to come. We'll do an unveiling. We'll say a few words, a little lunch afterward, et cetera.
Awesome.
But really looking forward to that time.
Yeah, that's incredible. I know you guys encountered some issues trying to get that statue put there, but it sounds like there's been some success now.
Yeah,
it's going to happen.
We asked permission from the school to have it on property. We're denied. But fortunately, my property where I live borders the practice field. So we're able to get them as close as possible. And then it's high enough up the base for the statue is so high that the statue is looking down on the practice
That's
field.
awesome.
So, yeah,
That's
it worked out
awesome.
good. Yeah.
Awesome. Rich, I appreciate you being here and doing this. I've wanted people to hear your story for, since I got the idea to start this podcast. So I appreciate you being here. I wish you the best of luck the rest of the season. And folks, if you get a chance, go out and see the Wyalusing Rams. They're a different animal now. Rich has got these guys, they're churning out, and they're just a well-disciplined football team, both, spiritually, mentally. They're men, and they're playing good football now too. So folks, get out to Wyalusing and cheer them on. Rich, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it, Joe.
Thanks.